Well, I have really enjoyed this family band series, Living in Harmony. I know it's been great. It's kind of hitting home, so to speak. Living in harmony, everybody wants to live in harmony. And so welcome. I'm glad you're here on the Richmond campus. I'm glad you're watching online. I always say hi to my mom. Welcome. Mom, I'm glad you're watching. I got to be careful what I'm saying because I talk about my family a lot growing up, and my mom always calls me and says, "What do you mean?" I'm going, "I was just making stuff up, Mom, really." And then I want to welcome my friends down in Missouri City. So many great things are happening at the Elkins High School at the Missouri City campus. Keep inviting people to Missouri City. The Missouri City campus is growing like crazy. Some great things are happening. Scott Denton, Sarah Bleeker, Bain, Taylor, everybody's doing a great job there. Keep inviting your neighbors and your friends to the Missouri City campus. Let's continue to build on that. Well, this family series today really kind of hits the nail on the head, because we're going to talk about something that's common to every single relationship we have and every single family, and that is we're going to talk about family, about conflict. Now, it doesn't matter what kind of family you have, whether it's a traditional type family or a blended family or a single parent family or single people wanting to make a family. I mean, it doesn't matter. Every family, every relationship, every sibling rivalry, every parent-child relationship has conflict. No doubt about it. There's conflict in every relationship, and there's different ways of dealing with this conflict. See if any of these make sense. Find yourself, but don't find your family members in this list, okay? Because that'll just create more conflict, and we don't want more conflict. We want less conflict. So here's how we deal with conflict. First, there are people that deal with conflict as a peacemaker. So there are peacemakers, and they're the ones that say, okay, fine, let's just move on. Let's just get this behind us. They just want to make peace at all costs. They don't want to deal with all the issues. It's just peacemaker, okay? The second one is the sulker. I've been guilty of this. Oh, I'm not supposed to identify myself here, but where you just kind of get down. It's just like, oh, you kind of get that puffy lip, the pouty face, that kind of thing. You're a sulker, and close to the sulker is the stuffer. The stuffer is a person when they have conflict, they have all this tension, they just swallow it. They just they stuff it down and they don't deal with it. And then usually stuffers end up exploding, at some point, but they just stuff it down. And then, I've been accused of this as well, you have the litigators. And the litigators are people who deal with conflict by arguing every point, and they're never wrong. It's not that they think they're never wrong. You ask them, and they'll say, well, no, it's not that I think. I've just actually never been wrong. I mean, and they can they can argue any point, and they argue every point, right? Litigators. And then the last one is screamers. This is how they deal with conflict. They're screamers. And I've been accused of being a screamer myself. And what happens typically with a screamer is screamers typically marry somebody else on this list, usually not a litigator, because litigators can raise the level quite a bit too. And screamers marry somebody else on this list, like a peacemaker or a stuffer or a sulker. And so when the screamer goes, let's just get this out on the table. Let's just talk about this. The other personality type that deals with conflict differently will say, get behind me, Satan. I mean, they just don't know how to deal with that. They just don't know how to deal with this. What does this get? In my family, if you thought it, you said it, and you apologize later for it. I mean, that's the kind of thing. You just kind of got it all out there on the table. You just talked about it. There was no things that you didn't talk about and those kind of things. And I married a little girl that didn't talk about anything. It was peacemakers. And if there was a problem, the strategy was to pretend there wasn't a problem. And when my family, if there wasn't a problem, we created a problem. I mean, so it just didn't work out for us, and we just had, I just remember the look on my wife's face the first time we got married, and I had this sort of passionate plea. I wasn't angry. That was the funny thing. I'm not angry. I'm just loud, And it was like, whoa, where is this coming from? So there's different ways of dealing with conflict. So you can identify yourself, you can identify others. There's probably other things on the list, but you deal with conflict. But here's the thing I want you to see today. I want you to see that even though there are different ways of dealing with conflict, there's really, generally speaking, only one source of conflict. In fact, here's what James asked. The book of James. This is Jesus' brother, right? He asked this question. This is a great question. What causes fights and quarrels among you? That's a great question. What causes quarrels and fights among you? Now, think about that. Think about your last conflict with somebody in your family. Typically, when this happens and there's quarrels and fights, we typically have this reflex that happens in our emotions that says, I know exactly what's caused this problem. It's you. I know exactly what the problem is. You are the problem. You won't do the good thing I've asked you to do. You won't do the simple thing. You won't do the obvious thing. You won't do the natural thing. You won't do the requested thing. You won't do the thing you promised that you would do. You won't do the thing you swore that you would never do. You're doing that thing. And so the problem is you. What do you mean? What is the reason for your quarrels and fights? There can't be just one source of this conflict. Can there be just one source? Because the sources of conflict tend to be, because of our reflex, tend to be as many sources as there are conflicts. I mean, every conflict is unique in some way, and I'm having conflict with this person or this teacher or this parent or this sibling because of these things. And if they would just do these things. And here's what we do. We place blame. This is our strategy. Our strategy for conflict, and we think, is blame. It's a reflex. We don't have to think about it. It started in the Garden of Eden. Blame. That's what we do. And the reason we're in conflict, you might say, is because of you and what we do. And this strategy of blame is a terrible strategy. It seems obvious. Maybe it's because our eyes focus outward, but it's a terrible strategy because here's what happens. We take our happiness. This represents our happiness, our little happy emoji. By the way, here's my general policy on emojis. Real men don't use emojis, okay? So if you ever text me with an emoji as a man, I will block you. That's it. I will block your number. I do not want to talk with you. I've lost complete respect. I don't even like the thumbs up. I certainly don't like the smiley face, I don't like any emojis. I think they're feminine. But for the sake of this conversation, I'm going to risk this. This emoji represents our happiness. And when we play the blame game, when we have a conflict with somebody and we come to the conclusion that the reason we're having conflict is because of you, then what we're doing is we're handing over our happiness to another person, that person we're in conflict with. And we have that and we empower them to either make us happy, take away our happiness, or restore our happiness. So we're handing them this happiness because we're blaming them for our conflict. And we feel oftentimes in our conflict, we feel so powerless because I can't make you do what I want you to do. And I can't get you to do what you said you'll do. And I'm powerless. And I'm going to have to give you my happiness, and I'm going to have to wait until you do what you said you were going to do, or not do what you said you wouldn't do anymore, or whatever it is the conflict is about, before you restore or give me back my happiness. And so this is a powerful concept here. This ideal of blame is a family killer. Because in my family, we have 6 people, and we're all blaming each other. And we're all wanting each other, and there's different dynamics. In our family, you have coalitions, 2 of the 6 will get together and try to vote the other 4 off the island. I mean, it's messy in my house, But now we're empty nesters, and now there's just 2 of us, and there's 4 less people to blame, and I'm so angry about this. There's only me or Lisa. And so what we do is we hand this over. We said, hey, if you would just do this, I'd be happy. And our happiness becomes, we empower people to either make us happy or not make us happy based on this conflict. And it's because we blame them as the source of our conflict. And I know it seems reasonable, and I'm going to get to the idea that what you are blaming them for, I'm not saying that they're right. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I want you to see this dynamic in play in the relationships in your home. I want you to see this idea that the reason you're having conflict and the reason it seems like that you can't win this conflict is because of this idea of blame. Now, here's the idea of conflict in a home. Even if you win an argument at home, you really do not win. I mean, it's not like anywhere else in the world. In the workplace, if you win an argument, you get your way, or in a neighborhood or whatever it is, you get your way. But in home, even if you win, you don't win. You have that feeling like something still ain't right. There's just this unresolved nature to this whole thing, and it's just never a victory at home. And so blame has a lot to do with this thing. And James is writing about this, and he really turns it on its ear for us. It really turns the argument around. And I want you to consider this as you think about harmony in your own home. Here's what he says. He says, what causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? And you'd say, no. The source of our conflict isn't about my desires that battle within me. They're about your terrible attitude. They're about the fact that you won't do what you said you were going to do. And if you would just do this, this is the source of our... And James is going, no, listen. This is a brand new way of looking at this. What causes the fights and quarrels among you? One place, from your desires. And they battle against you. The reason, I want you to consider this today, the reason you have conflict is because of your desires. It's what you want. He goes on and says it this way. He says, you have, what it said, here we go, next slide, here we go. You desire, but you do not have. You desire, but you do not have. So, look at this. You kill. Now, James is not talking to prisoners that committed murder. He's talking to Christians in the church. And he's saying, you have these desires, but you do not have the things that you want. And these desires are waging war in you, and you want this stuff. And so because you don't have this stuff, you kill. Another way to say that is, you are willing to hurt the people around you to get what you want. Your desires are spilling out of your life onto other people. And because other people are not willing to meet your desires of what you want, you're willing to hurt them, kill the relationship. Now, I know what you're saying. I know, because I'm saying it too. But what I want is good. What I want is right. And you feel justified. You feel totally justified in what you say and how you say it because what you want is right. And what I want you to see today is simple. It is your desires waging war in you that causes conflict with other people. It is not other people. It's something within your control, within your power. That doesn't mean what you want is wrong. It doesn't mean that what you want isn't the right thing to want. It just means that because of whatever it is that you want and you're not getting it, you're willing at some level to hurt the people around you that love you. That's why family relationships are the most really volatile relationships. That's why some of you left home as soon as you could because your parents wanted you to do something or to be something or to accomplish something, and they wanted it, and they were on you, and they shamed you, and they hurt you with their words, and they did all kinds of things to you in order to get you to do what they wanted you to do, and you couldn't do it anymore, and you left. And your parents were willing to kill their relationship with you because they weren't getting what they wanted. And you wanted something from your parents, or you wanted them to stop doing something, right? And you were willing to kill that relationship with your parents, your mom or your dad, because you weren't getting what you wanted to get. That's what James is saying here, is saying the reason that we're having so much conflict is because you're not getting what you want. And when you're not getting what you want, you're capable of really hurting the people around you. Now this is my own confession. This is the most worst mistakes I've ever made as a father. And dads, let me just tell you this, and I just kind of learned this along the way. Dads, let me tell you something about your relationship with your kids. And I don't want to be a chauvinist about this, but I think this is true. Dads, I think your words weigh like 5 million pounds to your children. I think mom's words weigh less for some reason. I don't know why. But dads, I mean, I don't know. There's something about all of us that want to please our dads. And dads, when you use your words, like I've used my words inappropriately, to try to get from my kids what I wanted from them, I was willing to hurt my relationship with my kids in order to get the good thing I wanted from them. And all along, we say this, dads, and some moms here too, we say, I just want the best for them. I just want them to reach their full potential. I just want them to be successful. And those are all good desires, right? But because you're not getting the good thing that you desire, that desire wages war in you, James would say. And because it's waging war in you, you're willing to turn around and leverage your words and your deeds and hurt people that you love the most in order to get from them what you need from them. You need them to do this. You need them to work harder. You need them to make better grades. You need them to whatever it is. And those words just destroy. They just destroy these relationships. And I think that's exactly what James is saying here. We belittle, we shame, we criticize, we put those little notes on their door, we text them with bad emojis, we just do all kinds of things because what we want, listen parents, listen, what we want is good. And it's not just with dads and kids or moms and kids, it's within the marriage relationship. We want our spouse to make more money, or we want our spouse to be skinnier, or we want our spouse to be something or do something or accomplish something. And we want that, and it wages war within us. And because it wages war within us, it spills out to people, and we hurt people. We kill. We kill relationships. Some of you are estranged from somebody in your family right now because you wanted something and you couldn't get it, and it killed your relationship. I know what that's like. It's very hard. And so here's what James goes on to say. You covet, which means you want, but you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and fight. Back to the same thing. What causes quarrels and fights among you? It's the desires that you're not getting. So you covet, you want, you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and fight. And I know, I feel it right here. I feel it even at Elkins High School. All the way through Elkins High School, I can feel this. But what I want is good. What I want is right. Or you're saying this. This is another thing you're saying. God, I wish my husband was here to hear this. There you go again, blaming. That's it. And what James is saying here is you quarrel and fight because you want something and you can't get it. And all I'm saying, I'm not saying what you want's not good. I'm not even saying what you want you shouldn't get out of your relationship. I'm not saying that you should pretend not to want the things you want. What I want you to do today is I want you to acknowledge the power of Scripture, this truth in your life that says, even though I thought the problem in our relationship was you, what I really want to recognize, it's not you, it's me, it's my desires. Even though my desires are good, I want to acknowledge that. Just acknowledging that is helpful. So here's how it works. Here's how it looks out. So when you're having an argument here with somebody, here's what I want you to try to do. This is absolutely impossible. This is not doable. This is the idea. But here's what I want you to say. Right in the middle of the argument, right in the middle of the heated argument, and I'm kind of elevated, so it's like, here's what I want to be able to say, I want to be able to say, you know what part of the problem is here, Lisa? And she's thinking I'm going to really give it to her. I'm not getting what I want. Have you ever said that in an argument? Ever? Has that ever come out of your mouth? You know what the problem is here? I'm not getting what I want. Oh, I've said plenty of times, you know what the problem is here? I'm looking at it. And she's done the same with me. Think about how it would diffuse and lower the temperature of every conflict if you would be able to say this to your children, even though what you want's good, to your spouse. You say, you know what part of the problem is here? I'm not getting what I want. Let's try that out loud together from the top with attitude. Don't screw around here. Use your finger if you need to. This is good. This is good and healthy. Here we go. Ready? You know what part of the problem is here? I'm not getting what I want. Feels strange, doesn't it? Because don't you just feel so empowered when you go, you know what the problem is here? You're not keeping your promises. You know what the problem is here? Your attitude is terrible. Your tone is terrible. You don't do what you say. You have no integrity. You know what the problem is here? You. Don't you feel empowered? So it diffuses everything when you say, no, you know what part of the problem is here? I'm not getting what I want. It's just strange to say. Let's try it one more time. With attitude now. I know we're in church. This is good practice. I know you're never going to do this again. Yeah. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to get home and get in an argument and go, you need to watch the pastor's sermon. You know what the problem is here? You're not listening to the sermon. That is not going to help you at all. Okay? That's what you're going to do. That is going to get you in so much trouble. All right. Try this again. This is strange. This is awful. Here we go. You know what part of the problem is here? I'm not getting what I want. I heard a pastor, Andy Stanley in Atlanta, teach on this and say that phrase. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's so strange to my ears. But you know, when I started practicing that, I thought, holy cow, it totally diffuses the problem. Even if what you want is good. Listen, don't feel defensive like I'm taking away your candy here, but you don't know what I want. I mean, you don't know what I'm living with. You don't know what I'm dealing with. I don't care. Even the good, healthy things, the healthy relationship that you want, that you're not getting is the problem. This good, wholesome, godly desire that's waging war in you because you're not getting what you want. You're not getting the good thing that you want. And listen, here's what I'm saying. Just acknowledging that up front in a conflict is so helpful. It is so helpful. It's funny, I always thought resolving conflict was to get my wife or my children to see my point, to convince them, to get them to buy into my value, my point of view, my understanding, my desires. So with great passion, I would try to get them to get on my team. And when I started going, you know what the problem is here? I'm not getting what I want. I never said it that way. Here's what I say. I say, I sit down with them, and it's just me and my wife now. So I just say, Lisa, here's what I want. And here's I don't know how to get that. And all of a sudden, the temperature, the tension, the conflict goes. She's not defensive anymore. Like usually when I say, you know what the problem is here? You. She'll go, me? Your breath stinks. And it just gets from there. It's just, you start pulling things out of your pocket to hit somebody with. It's just like, me, you, me, what? That kind of thing. But when you say, here's what I realize. I've been thinking about this. here's what I want, and I'm not getting it, and I don't know what to do with that. Now it's my problem that she'll help me with versus her problem she has to own. It's a game changer. It is a complete and total game changer in every relationship you have. Now, James goes on here. Now, this is, if you're not a Christ follower, if you don't believe in the Bible thing, which I'm glad you're here for that, everything I've set up to here will be really helpful for you. In fact, you can go home and try this and just say, I was thinking, hey, you know this, and you'll get so much credit at home for that. But if you're a Christ follower, here's what James says to you. He says this, you do not have because you do not ask God. So it's all the same stream of teaching from James, the brother of Jesus, that the reason you have all this conflict, the one source of all these quarrels and fights, is the fact that you're not getting what you want. And here's something that you not considered, that you do not have because you do not ask God. And then he goes on and says, when you ask, you do not receive because you ask with the wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your own pleasures. So James is saying here, in just a really incredible way here, is here's something that Christ followers should do. That when you have this conflict, and for me, man, I have not a good poker face, right? You know, so when I get upset, man, it's immediate, and my passions rise, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, okay. So I'm learning, of course I'm 50 now, so I'm growing up, and I'm learning to say, okay, I'm not getting what I want. So here's the first challenge. What do I want? What do I really want? That's a very difficult thing to discern, because sometimes you're just frustrated. And a lot of times what happens is you're mad at the guy at work, or you're mad at the guy that cut you off on the way home from work, or you're mad at the teacher, or you're mad at somebody else, and your spouse or your family member walks in at the wrong time and says hello, and that's the trigger point for you. So when you feel that, you got to go, okay, what is it that I really want? What do I want? This is where you get to be validated in your good desires. You say, okay, here's what I want. This takes time, by the way, away from the other person. So don't be reactionary. This is a call to calm and thought and reflection, and it's ultimately a call to prayer. And then once you decide what you want, what is it that you desire, here's what James is saying. Ask God for it. And stop demanding it from the people in your family. Now, I know what you're saying. But what I want, I told her to come in at a certain time. Here's what I want. I want her to obey the rules. I get it. That's simple. You know, I want my kids to have different friends. You know, I want my daughter to stop dating that idiot. Sorry, Lord, but you made that idiot, but you must not have been paying attention, because that ain't working. You know, I mean, that's the idea. Is you grow in your faith because you take what you want instead of putting that pressure on somebody else and trying to extract from them these desires that you need and want. That the first thing that you do before you have that conversation is you go to God as a follower of Christ and you say, God, I want my daughter, I want my son, I want my spouse to do different. I want these things. What is it that I really want? God, discern my heart. And you take your desires before God. That's ultimately the relevancy of your relationship with Jesus Christ, by the way, is to be able to take your desires to God and have God sort them out. And what you'll realize at times, especially with your children, is they're not capable of giving you some of the things that you desire. They're either not matured enough, developed enough, enlightened enough. I mean, there's something about your kids that they're just not ready for that kind of. I know you want them to be better drivers, but they're 16, okay? There. I know you want them to pay attention, They're boys. You know, and then all of a sudden when you start with God instead of start with this other person, now if you're handing your happiness to anybody, you're handing it to the right person. And you're saying, God, I have this desire and it's waging war in my life, and I want this so bad. I want this so bad. Would you deal with me on this desire? And here's what happens. You start the conversation with the person that you need to have that conversation with at such a different place. And you don't feel totally and completely dependent on that person for your happiness. And the pressure is relieved. So I just wonder today, who's feeling the pressure of your desires right now? Who's feeling that hurt? Because they're not living up to what you want them to do. And because you haven't gone to God. And here's what I've experienced. I've experienced God take care of my desires. I've seen God work miracles in my family's life, and I didn't have to say a word. I know that's hard to believe, that you feel like God really needs you in this process. And sometimes he does. I'm not saying avoid conversations. I'm just saying maybe you start them at a completely different place, where all of a sudden the emotion is diminished and your desires are taken to God, and you just say, God, here's what I want. And I know, here's what I say. Here's what I say in my house. I've learned this. The best defense in a fight is no defense. Everything is my fault. And I believe that. It may take me some time to figure out how it's my fault. And I might have to go back to, well, if I had never asked you out, then this would never have happened. I mean, I may have to go back that far, but I'm going to figure it out, okay? How this is my fault. This is my fault because somehow this is my fault. That allows me to be introspective and allows me to be prayerful about things in my heart. And I know you're saying, well, that's not fair. Listen, it's not fair. Fair was lost in the garden. We only use fair when it benefits us, don't we? I mean, you never, like, at Christmas time, which is coming up here, you don't, like, get this incredible parking spot at the mall and, bang your hands on the steering wheel going, it's just not fair. I just drove in and got this parking spot, and there's people just circling and circling and circling. This is not fair. No, you don't do that. You say, thank you, Jesus. That's what you do. The Lord has answered my prayer. Thank you, Jesus. I must be living a righteous life. Look at the parking spot I got. And the guy circling going, well, that ain't fair. And then they say, is that an RPC sticker on the back of your car? So we don't, listen, throw fair out. There ain't no fair. Fair is long gone. It ain't fair. It ain't supposed to be fair. If you're going to be the fair police, then you're going to have a lot of conflict because you're going to always try to make it fair. When my kids were little, I can't remember which one of them. I think it was my daughter who said was little. She just learning to talk, and she realized something. We still say this today. When something wasn't fair, she got really mad one day, and she looked at me like her twin brother got candy or something, and she didn't get it. And she was really upset, and he got candy, and she didn't. And she was crying, and she looked at me, and she said, that's not ever. She didn't understand the word fair. So to this day, when something's not fair in my family, we say, well, that's not ever. That kind of deal. So listen, throw fair out. It ain't worth the fight. I just take the blame. It's all my fault. This is my fault. And I'm going to take responsibility. Because when you say, listen, when you say the problem I'm having here is I'm not getting what I want, here's what you do. You look in the mirror instead of looking at the other person. And you have to ask the question, what do I want? And then, God, I'm going to give you my desires. Here's what I want. Some things that I want that I take to God, I no longer want for whatever reason. God takes those desires away from me. Other things I see God starting to work on, in my kids' lives, in my parents' life. This isn't the opportunity, by the way, to go to God and say, God, okay, here's the strategy. Here's what I want, and you know I'm right. So God, I'm going to need you to do this. That's not what this Bible verse says. This Bible verse says, take your desires to God and ask him. When you ask him, then you listen to him. Sometimes he says, no, you're not going to get that. Sometimes, listen, as heartache as it is, your kids aren't going to be what you want them to turn out to be. And you putting pressure on them might just kill the relationship because they didn't become what you wanted them to be. I know you wanted them to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever it is. But that pressure you're doing might just kill the relationship. And it will not make them successful in life. I'm not saying what you want's not right, or not good, not healthy, doesn't seem ambitious. It is. Congratulations. You just might not have a relationship with your son or your daughter because of it. And that's hard. I've made these mistakes. And I've decided I want to have a relationship with my kids. And man, I'm telling you, my kids are all teenage. Well, no, they're not all. 3 of my kids are teenagers. And actually, I don't know how 2 of my kids are teenagers. I have a 20-year-old and then my married son. And they'll do something, say something, and the hair on the back of my neck will just stand up. And I've really grown, y'all. You'd be so proud of me. I'd go, I have to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. And I go in there and go, Lord, I sit on the commode, Lord, thank you so much. I'm not going to the bathroom. I'm just sitting there going, Lord, listen, you know my desires. And you know I just want to say something awful because of what was just said. But I'm going to give you that desire. I'm going to give you my happiness because my kids are trying to steal it from me. And I'm going to walk out of this bathroom after faking this bathroom moment, and I'm going to love my children. It doesn't mean you can't have a conversation with them about these issues. It just means you start at a different place with a different emotional level. You do not have, so you kill. You know what the problem is here? I'm not getting what I want. That's the problem. And when you get that, when you realize that, when you soak on that, it will change the dynamic of your family and every relationship you have. I promise you, try it. You know what the problem is here? I'm not getting what I want. That's the problem. That's the single source of all your quarrels and all your fights. So says the Bible. So take your desires to God and see what happens. Let's pray together. Father, I know as I talk about these hard things, there are people sitting here with lots of shame and lots of guilt. And we're thankful indeed that even though we make mistakes out of our anger and out of just trying to get what we want, because what we believe in, what we want is so right and so good, that we've hurt people. And we say we're looking out for the other person or just doing what's best for them and all these justifications and all these things that we are so self-righteous in. And it really just comes down to what your word says in James. We're not getting what we want. We just pray we learn to take our desires to you. Every desire we have for our spouse, every desire we have for our children, for our brothers, for our sisters, for our parents, that we learn how to take those desires and give them to you and have you search our heart and have you diffuse our emotion so that we can see that sometimes the things that we want from our children or our spouse, they're not capable of giving. But we can still be happy because of you. So may we not kill, but may we build up these relationships. And I pray, I know this is so hard to hear, God. So may nobody here or in Elkins hear this, that this means you're to ignore or not deal with issues or pretend. That is not what I believe your word says, God. It just means that the desires I have are causing a problem that I want you to solve in my life first before I try to get family members to solve them. And may that build my faith in you. And may that be all of our prayer. Build strong families in harmony. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Well, God